Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're taking formal research methodology and totally flipping it on its head. We are stripping away all that dry academic jargon you're probably used to, and instead, we're going to use three incredibly relatable mental models to decode how research actually works at its core. So let's just dive right in with a question. What do jigsaw puzzles, a long road trip, and a doctor diagnosing a patient actually have in common with formal academic research? Now, I know it kind of sounds like the setup to a bad joke, but I promise you it's not. These three super ordinary, everyday things perfectly explain the entire foundation of research methodology. We're going to use these exact concepts today to really break down how research, and specifically research objectives, actually function. Now, before we get into the fun analogies, let's just lay down a quick baseline with a formal definition. Redman and Morey defined research as a careful and systematized effort to gain new knowledge. And honestly, that right there is the heart of it. It's not just randomly guessing or frantically Googling things. It is a highly organized, deliberate way of finding out what we don't already know. It's the pursuit of truth, but through a very specific, logical system. All right, let's kick things off with analogy one, the jigsaw puzzle. Picture a massive, beautiful, 1,000-piece puzzle sitting right in front of you, but it's got several pieces missing. The parts that are already put together, that represents existing knowledge. This is literally everything that scientists and scholars have already figured out and published. You don't need to reinvent those parts. But those missing pieces, that is the research gap. Your entire job when you start a study is not to invent a brand new puzzle from scratch. It's just to figure out what's already assembled on the table and then hunt down the exact missing pieces. So how does this actually map over to the academic world? Well, you are the researcher, right? You're the person actively searching for those pieces. Your methodology is simply your strategy for finding them. Are you checking under the couch? Are you sorting them all by color? Whatever it is, that's your method. And your objectives? That is just your list of the specific missing sections you are trying to complete. To put that into perspective, let's look at a really concrete medical technology example from our sources. Let's say the big puzzle you're looking at is epilepsy detection. Researchers have actually already assembled a ton of this puzzle. For instance, they already know that EEG signals can detect seizures. But there's a glaring hole in the picture. We don't have a reliable, low-cost wearable headband to do this easily at home. That specific lack of a headband, that is your missing piece. And that becomes your tangible, highly specific research objective. You are going out there to build or test that exact headband to complete the picture. Moving right along, let's shift gears to analogy 2, Google Maps. Think about the literal first thing you do when you open a GPS app. Step 1 is always entering your destination. In research, that destination is your objective. It's where you want to end up. Step 2 is the route the app gives you. Maybe you want the fastest route or you want to avoid tolls. That route is your methodology. Step 3 represents the traffic or bad weather you might run into, which perfectly mirrors your research challenges. And finally, step 4 is your arrival, which in academia translates exactly to your findings. Because think about it. If you just open a mapping app and stare at it without typing in a destination, it can't guide you anywhere. It's totally useless. Research is the exact same way. You simply cannot choose a research method, you can't pick your route, without first defining your exact objective. Without clear objectives, your research has absolutely zero direction. And that brings us to our third and final metaphor, analogy 3, the doctor's diagnosis. Imagine walking into a doctor's office and just saying, "Hey doc, I don't feel well." A good doctor isn't going to just guess and hand you a random bottle of pills. They follow a highly structured system. Step 1, they observe your symptoms and ask questions, which is exactly like a researcher identifying a problem. Step 2, they might order blood tests or x-rays. This is the precise equivalent of a researcher collecting data and running a methodology. And step 3, they analyze those lab reports to confirm a diagnosis, perfectly mirroring a researcher drawing conclusions from their data. At the end of the day, both the physician and the researcher are chasing the exact same things. They both want to fundamentally understand the disease or the core problem. They both want to identify the underlying cause of it. And ultimately, they both want to develop a better treatment or a practical solution. So whether you're standing in a medical clinic or a university lab, the mindset is literally identical. All right, so now that we've decoded the researcher's mindset using puzzles, maps, and medicine, let's look at defining your problem in academia. So, going back to our puzzle, how do we actually figure out which pieces are already in place? Enter the literature review. This is a survey and critical analysis of published information to recognize gaps in existing knowledge. Think of it as your formal reconnaissance mission. You are essentially looking at the puzzle table, examining all the hard work previous scholars have already done, so you don't accidentally waste months of your life putting together a section of the puzzle that's actually already finished. The process of defining a problem is basically a giant funnel. You almost always start up at the top with this massive, messy social issue or a huge management dilemma. And it's way too big to tackle all at once. So you have to pass it through filters, things like feasibility, novelty, and honestly, what data is actually available to you. By the time it reaches the bottom of that funnel, it's been compressed down into a highly specific, actionable research problem. You've gone from saying, I want to fix the economy, to I want to test how this one specific tax policy affects small bakeries in this specific city. Now, once you've narrowed down that specific problem, you need to state your objective. Think back to our Google Maps analogy. These are your formal academic destinations. You might have an exploratory objective, where you're just trying to gain some familiarity with a brand new topic. Or maybe a descriptive objective, aiming to portray the exact characteristics of a particular group. Then you've got diagnostic objectives, which look at how often things occur. And finally, hypothesis testing objectives, which are all about proving a causal relationship. Defining this right out of the gate dictates your entire route. All of this rigorous structure ultimately points back to a fantastic quote from our sources by Cathari. The main aim of research is to find out the truth which is hidden and which has not been discovered as yet. Despite all the structure, the literature reviews, and those data funnels we just talked about, you can never forget that you are on an expedition. You are literally an explorer looking for hidden truths that are going to expand human knowledge. We've definitely covered some serious ground today. You understand now that research is not about inventing the universe from scratch, but rather finding the missing piece to the puzzle. You know that you absolutely have to program your objective into your GPS before you even try to pick your methodological route. And you know that you have to diagnose the symptoms logically, step by step, just like a doctor would. So you have your map, you know your destination. The only question left is, are you ready to find your missing piece? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy researching.